Hi, welcome again to the big picture, where we are looking at deep issues involved in the character of God. My name is Pastor Roger Kistow of the Fourth Angel Loud Cry SDA Ministry, and today we want to look at the fires of God again, but the final fires. Many people have a good concept about God's character. They believe that He doesn't destroy, but at the end, with the fires that will consume the wicked, consume the earth, and purify it. This is where they have a spot of bother. And many ministers, many preachers in their search have found that they have come up upon a block and they cannot get around it. The fires of God. So God is now seen as one who will burn the sinner everlastingly. The Catholics believe that. The other religions believe that he will burn on a particular level for a certain amount of time, prorated based upon one's obedience or disobedience or lack of obedience, let me put it that way. But we want to see that God can be trusted from beginning to the end. He is not a destroyer. And even with the fires of God, we are going to see something. The last time we showed that the fires of God represents his presence. We saw even Lucifer walked up and down in the stones of fire, God's presence. We saw as well, and I'll quote this text now, that not just angels, not just Lucifer, but angels dwell, according to Daniel 7, in the presence of God and amongst burning fire and so on. So there are different levels of God's fire, different understandings, and we're going to see that as well. God's fire is normally associated with destruction and, bringing realities into effect. But we will see as we begin this series on the final fires what it really is. So there is everlasting burning. Then the Bible talks about a fire that is unquenchable. We have the lake of fire. Isaiah and Christ speaks about that worm that will not die. The Bible speaks about hell in different types of ways. So what are these fires of God? But let me just start off by quoting this text found in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah 33 and verse 14 says, "The sinners in Zion are afraid. Fearfulness hath surprised the hypocrites. Who among us shall dwell in the devouring fire?" Isaiah asks. "Who among us shall dwell with everlasting burnings?" And then he answers in verse 15, "Who dwells there? He that walks righteously, that speaks uprightly, he that despises the gain of oppressions, that shaketh his hands from holding bribes, that stops his ears from hearing of blood, and shuts his eyes from seeing evil." So it is obvious that the righteous dwell in the presence of the Lord. And that's why the psalmist David says, "Thou wilt show me the path of life. In thy presence is fullness of joy." Oh, praise the Lord. Psalm 16:11. So it stands to reason that if God's fire represents his presence, it means that one can dwell there. The righteous can dwell there. And the psalmist says that we are going to dwell in the fullness of joy. I'm going to be short today because I just want to open it up. So there is the everlasting burnings. There is the unquenchable fire, and then there's the lake of fire that the sinner will finally go into when all other avenues have been resourced and exhausted. I want to just throw this in here, and then the next time we're going to look at the three types of fires individually. Abraham, when he was called to sacrifice his son, that's a serious object lesson that many miss, because it is obvious that one must die so that we can live. That's the plan of salvation. That's the gospel. One died that we can live. That is understanding that the death of Christ was substitutionary. Among other things, it substituted life for life. So it means, therefore, the way that the sinner would finally die is seen in the death of Christ, and even in this story of Abraham sacrificing his son. In Genesis 22:8, we have this. And Abraham said, "My son," that's when Isaac asked, "Where's the sacrifice?" He says, "My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering." This is very, very critical. Abraham is not saying that God is going to provide a lamb, which means that he has a lamb and he will send the lamb in the thicket. No, he's saying himself will be that lamb as a burnt offering. As a burnt offering. So therefore, we can gather something there. So we are told in Leviticus 4:24, "And he shall lay his hand upon the head of the goat and kill it in the place where they kill the burnt offering before the Lord. It is a sin offering." Exodus 40 and verse 6 says, "And thou shalt set the altar of the burnt offering before the door of the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation." So look at what happened. The offering was killed because the offering then became sin, substitutionary for the sinner. So by laying the hands upon the lamb or the offering, and then that signified that sin is transferred, and because of that sin that is in type on the animal, he must then be killed. So he's killed and then it is burnt. That should give us an idea how God is going to deal with the finally impenitent. Notice again with the burnt offering, because it is a symbol of what Christ will have experienced. Notice Abraham said, "The Lord will provide himself." What he was saying, the Lord himself will be that sacrifice, that burnt offering. The Lord himself, not a lamb now, but the Lord himself. The lamb just typified what Christ would experience. So Christ experienced the same thing. He suffered because of the sins of all men. He suffered first and died and then was buried. With the lamb, he suffered death, signifying that it was sin that took his life, and then he was burnt. The burning of the dead animal is not what is normally portrayed in the halls of churches and in the halls of debate. What is portrayed is that God himself, while the sinner is still alive, he's going to burn them. But the sanctuary answers this clearly, that it is not Christ, but sin kills the sinner. And we're going to see how this happens. Sin kills the sinner, and then he is burnt so that the earth will be purified. We're going to get it the next couple times. We're going to see the different types of fires and how God remains impeccably pure through this soul. You have been listening and viewing The Big Picture with me, Pastor Roger Kistow of the Fourth Angel Loud Cry SDA Ministry. You can like, you can subscribe, you can share this video. If you have comments, please put them in the comments so that we can discuss them further. God bless you.